Hey y'all, and welcome back. So I just felt really guided to hop on today and try to give messages. So calling in the highest love and light energies right now to help the collective with messages right now in terms of dealing with this war that we're in right now. You know, people are talking more about what this war is all over social media. People are understanding that there is a genocide operation that's connected to this war. I can explain to you more about that in depth if that's something you're interested in learning about. And then there are essentially like prison camps, okay? And the prison camps are not the traditional prison camps that we're all used to. It is, they're called sleeper cells, okay? And they're being done through Neuralink. And that's why Elon gave the Nazi salute when he was on the stage. So this is something that's been in the works for a while, is them kind of like emulating World War II Nazi Germany. And I've talked about this very openly on my channel, that they did stuff to my face through their AI nanotech. I have a marking of a swastika on my face, and on the other side I have an alien eye. And they also did other things to me. They followed me with Russians. I had feds surrounding me. They sent me a shower head from a gas company, which I thought was odd. And I didn't really make the connection to Nazi Germany until, I don't know, probably it was like several weeks later. I was like, what's going on? I guess that was my intro to realizing that this was them ushering in Nazi Germany. And that was in 2021. Around the end of August, early September, okay? So they had a lot of these plans already in the works, because I believe Donald Trump had already made comments and references to Hitler, talking about his admiration for him at different times. And we had already seen him create these like deadly cults on US soil. I mean, he really did create culture with QAnon and the megas. And that was something they worked on all the time. Every day he was rallying, even during his fake presidency, he was still rallying. And that was part of, you know, really beefing up, you know, the energy of his base and really turning them essentially into a weapon against our country. You know, moving their talking points, you know, through their crowds to start really like moving them in the way they wanted them to move. And a lot of people who have come out of MAGA have said that it was their friends, it was their family, it was like what they heard in the car with their father. They're putting on, you know, right-wing radio. And right-wing radio is right in line with all of the same talking points, because this was all a part of a coordinated operation and attack to infiltrate our country. And they knew they could weaponize the South and the areas that still were unhealed from the Civil War that was essentially embedded with the, I guess, the racism still, okay? The racial elements. They knew that they could kind of like, I guess, rally them up and kind of like get their feathers ruffled enough to kind of turn them, I guess, to in turn weaponize them and have them become a part of the racial terrorism, okay, aspects. That's what I'm hearing, racial terrorism. This is when we started to see the rise in the KKK demonstrations, and we started to watch them formulate their base. So the message I was getting today, the higher message, okay, since I work with the light, and that's essentially what guided me onto YouTube, and, you know, always trying to get higher messages as to why we're going through what we're going through right now, especially for people who don't have karma, who have worked through their karma and now have been victims of their karma because of the DNA technology. I call them little babies. They can't grow up. They can't take accountability for their actions. They can't take accountability. They can't handle their karma. You know, I say that a lot on their V2K device, you know? Like, why don't you just grow up? Like, you're afraid of karma. You have to freaking dissect an entire planet so you don't have karma? Don't you think that's pathetic? Don't you think that's weak? I mean, that's how I look at them. Like, you have to be so weak if you can't handle your karma. First off, you don't even understand what karma is. It's like they refuse to evolve. They refuse to grow up. They refuse it. Half of them are freaking in their freaking 70s and 80s. And this is the stuff they could not stand about me. This is why I ended up rising in military ranks, because I was the opposite of them, because I didn't see things the way they saw things. And as a result, I usually did the opposite. And then because I did that, they would get mad because they don't want me rising in rank. They don't want me to be powerful. They don't want that. So then they bury me. Or they put me on even worse assignments, you know, and then they forget to pay me, or they forget they can't get the money to me in time, or, oh, she moved again. Well, because you had my ex move out of the freaking state. That was another operation to get him to move out of the state. Don't act like you didn't know that that was all pre-planned and you were a part of all of that. Oh, your mail is stuck again. Oh, it's not coming up in the system. Whatever. It's like one excuse after the next, after the next, after the next. So anyways, I digress. So the messages, the higher messages I was getting today is that everything is an illusion. So we're now going to be breaking through that illusion today in terms of what they did to the collective and to us on US soil within the last several years. So it's going to be breaking down the illusion. So what do I mean by that illusion? Everything that they created was done on a false timeline because they got the science from the Pentagon, courtesy of Bill Barr. And because they got this science, and because it got in the hands of the darkest, most evilest, sickest Russian oligarchs in the world, we now have been suffering in hell, many of us who are on Donald Trump's blacklists, okay? And so what they did is they essentially, I'm hearing, choreographed our life in a way where we would be entrapped, okay, in a certain way, where they brought in almost like paid actors into our lives to hurt us. They're saying, I'm hearing right now, burden us, and to essentially create a form of warfare against us. So through their MK Ultra programs, through the Mike Flynn mind control programs, they have a whole other slew of operations in coordination with the Air Force, okay, to essentially make us believe that there's like something more to these people. Like maybe there's a romance that appeared to be somewhat real in our reality, but it was a choreographed romance that was brought in to hurt you or to destroy you. So that's why there's been so many heartbreaks, okay? There's been so many people who have been heartbroken by people they thought were these soulmates, okay? That they were meant to be with, okay? These were, in a sense, paid off actors brought into our lives. And this was done through, I believe, the operation connected to the Tate brothers, specifically Andrew Tate, and the incels, okay? So the incels is directly connected to the metaverse and Mark Zuckerberg's programs. And this is how they were essentially able to control our lives, okay? And this is also part of their dehumanization agenda, chipping us with AI implants out of Texas, which are directly tied to Elon and George W. Bush's camp and his military. And this is to own and control us. So because they decided to be little freaking 5-year-olds, okay, and play into this Nazi agenda and get China involved in this with Mattel, also in coordination with Scientology, which is the CIA of Hollywood, and coordinating the rollout of the Barbie movie. So the Barbie movie talks about this secret male agenda with Ken, and it touches on a lot of what their operations were, okay, against us. So in terms of them controlling us, what these very sleepy, unconscious masculines don't understand is that everything has to have balance, okay? Everything has to come into some kind of balance. So if you throw off the energies of the country or the world in a way where you're trying to program us, and we are these energetic beings, okay? Essentially, what happens is going to throw off the rhythm of the world and the country, and then there's going to be a boomerang effect where it comes back around, okay? Because you can't freaking control us. It's not possible. It's not, I don't think it's actually scientifically possible. Even though you'll probably sit in meetings with a bunch of freaking paid off scientists and paid off astrophysicists or whoever else, techies or engineers, and they'll tell you the opposite. I can tell you that it's not freaking possible without there being some kind of ramifications for doing this. And that's a lot of what I feel a lot of the divine feminines are going through right now. So part of this breakdown is us seeing through the illusions of our life and what they actually hand choreographed with staged, paid off actors, aka incels, or other members of their groups, okay, which could fall under secret societies or other cults, okay? So there is going to be a part of our brain that thinks that these people in our life are people that are meant to be in our life, and maybe there was something divine about them. I'm not going to like discount that 100% because I don't think I don't think that there are accidents. And I think if that specific person ended up being the staged actor for your life, perhaps there is some karma from past lives, and perhaps it's something a little bit higher, okay, than what these people who are programming us are even aware of. But there's also another part to it where it was staged and choreographed and is not something necessarily rooted in our path or something that we need to actually be a part of or engage with anymore. So I think a lot of that is leaving our lives right now, is this false narrative or these false romances or even friendships or partnerships that are going to be leaving our lives. And we are now going to start to see the role that they were playing in our lives as their black magic and other technologies start to kind of break away. So just some information about their technologies. Every time I have gone in to figure out what their technologies are on an energetic, spiritual level, it always goes back to black magic. I usually will find a witch. I will usually find an altar. I will usually find several altars depending on what the technology is. And it typically always, in every case, goes back to some type of witchcraft, black magic. So this is another thing that they banked on, was their altars, okay? Not being seen, not being uncovered, not being found out, that their technologies were rooted in black magic and Satanism. But there is something that I believe they did not take into accountability, and that is with any spell. It could be 20 years out, 30 years out, 100 years out. It can always break at any time. It can break at any time. So it's not guaranteed. Black magic is not guaranteed. So even if you don't know there's a spell, okay, obviously the spell's not going to break. But once you find out that there's spell work that was involved with certain technologies, and you can find out what the origin of the spell work is and send it white light or whatever you're going to send it, it's going to break. It's going to break. And as these technologies start to break down, as we find their spell work, okay, because I believe a lot of our ancestors and spirit guides are trying to help us with this to break free from this trap matrix that they created here, which is completely blasphemous and illegal and against violations of all earth laws and human laws, is that these spells are going to continue breaking, and we're going to start to see the truth behind what they really did. Okay, so it's going to start coming out more and more in terms of how choreographed our lives have been in the last several years, and why so many of us were trapped, and why so many of us couldn't communicate with soul family, or get back to our soul family, or get back to friends and family. We're going to realize why certain things weren't aligning in our life, and it's going to become more and more in our faces by the day, because so much of their spell work has been broken already within the last 6 months. So it's going to take at least 3 to 6 months for us to see through the illusions of their spell work. So every time a spell breaks, it's going to bring more stuff to the light. So the next 6 months, it's going to be more in our faces, and so on. And depending on how far back the spells go and to what wars they go back to, then we're going to start to see through the illusions of all of the wars, which is what is truly, I believe, uncovering the intentions of the Bush family right now. And I think we understand a little bit more about these wars and the oil agenda, and that they were never about our country and its freedom, but it was more of a selling off parts of our country and controlling us in other ways through these deep state coalitions with oligarchs and other people. This, I believe, is a lot of the information that many of our allies may have already had knowledge of through their own intelligence, but that this type of warfare against our country and the world was in the works for a really, really long time. And I keep getting it going back to, well, they're showing me the 60s right now. And I believe it's in coordination with the Cold War. And there is a part of me that believes maybe the Cold War actually never even ended, but it was done through a series of deals that we would not uncover. So it would appear as if we won the war, when in fact we really didn't. It was something else, a coalition, so to speak. That is still coming to light right now, and it's going to continue coming to light. And right now there's talk about Tesla and his electric cars and his batteries, and that anyone who posed a threat to the Bushes' oil business essentially is a target of theirs, okay? But perhaps there was a coordinated effort, I'm hearing, between the Bush camp and Elon's camp when he took over Tesla to essentially partner together on these deep state, right-wing agendas. And as many of you all know, Africa is tied into Elon's business and his batteries and their minerals and resources, which is probably a big tie into why there's been so much U.S. business going on in Africa, and how it became kind of like a hub for a lot of their dark agendas. So I will leave you guys there. I am wishing you the best. Would love to hear your feedback, your comments on all of this, and if this resonates in any way with you. I'm sending you lots of love and light in this dark, shadowy time. Many of us are on the front lines without even knowing how we even got there or why we're here. But we are doing the best we can, and that's all we can do is just stay to the light and stand in our truth, take back our power, and never let anyone take your power from you, ever. So I'm wishing you the best. Thanks for your patronage, your likes, shares, subscriptions, and thank you for coming through and getting readings, and I'll talk to you all soon. Take care.